Welcome to 28.5 Women's Basketball, where we explore a unique and authentic perspective on the women's game, break down upcoming matchups, and discuss the latest news and trends in women's basketball. We are your hosts. I'm Sydney Story, and I played basketball at the University of Tennessee under Pat Summitt.
And I'm Becca Goodman, and I played at the University of Notre Dame under Muffet McGraw. And we're thrilled to have you join us today. Before we jump in, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy what you hear, be sure to tune in each week and don't forget to follow, download, and listen to give an assist and share the love. Now let's get started with today's episode. Hello, Sid. How's it going?
Becca, what's up? I'm pumped for today's episode because so much happened over the weekend, and that's why we love it. It brings us joy to come on here and just pick it all apart and have fun with it. And so things are going well. How was your weekend? Did you have a good weekend?
It was good. It was busy. I did some of the radio announcing for the semi-state girls high school basketball games for 4A, so that was cool. I got to see my old high school coach there with the Northridge Lady Raiders and some other teams there. So busy Saturday, and then obviously Sunday to overconsumed with the basketball games and just the fact of, Vandy had a close one. TCU was almost upset. You and I were just touching base on stuff, and it was like, did you see this? Did you watch this? Yeah, did you follow? It was just good, all in all, women's basketball all weekend long.
Yeah, boom, boom, boom. Solid weekend of women's basketball for you. Shout out to who the victors were. Who won in the games that you were commentating for?
Yep. So McCutcheon girls beat Northridge, and then Norwell beat Crown Point. And the wild thing is Norwell won 3A state last year, and that was the game that I was doing the TV for. And now they're in 4A because they had to bump up. And the fact they're like kind of dominating in 4A is pretty wild. And they're headed back down to the state finals at a different level. So it's going to be super exciting.
Yeah, shout out to the Hoosier State. That's what we do to ourselves. If you're good and you win in a lower bracket, they bump you up the next year.
Yeah,
I think it's like the next couple years even. So
yeah,
that's awesome. That's really cool. You got to do that though. They were certainly lucky to have you.
No, it was a great opportunity. Appreciate the IHSAA for just having me. It was a ton of fun, and looking forward to doing 2 games this weekend. So fun times all around.
All right, let's highlight our episode for today. We've got 4 full quarters and an overtime. So it's going to be a big episode today, which I'm excited about. The first quarter, we're going to hit our high-low, and really it's one game. Both of us were in agreement that this is the game we should highlight. Second quarter, we're going to talk about some additional ranking rockers. So there were a lot of upsets certainly that happened, and Sunday was a big day for that. Our third quarter, the WNBA mock draft. So we're going to digest a little bit of that mock draft and where it stands today. And as of right now, what player would go where. And it's purely a mock, but it's pretty entertaining to read through it. And then the fourth quarter, we're going to talk about Ole Miss's brutal week. It was a big week coming in for Ole Miss. So we're talk about what happened there. And then we've got an overtime to talk about the upcoming matchups. So let's jump in.
Let's do it. Let's rock that first quarter where we have the same game being the high and low for both of us.
Yeah, our high-low. So we talked about it. You broke it down nicely last week, Becca, where we talked about what high-low is. You and I run that a lot in AAU because it just allows girls just to play, right? So
absolutely,
especially against some zone action. But the high-low of the week, we're going to go with the Iowa Hawkeye game versus the Michigan Wolverines. And it was a high of a high for Iowa and a low of a low for Michigan. Number 13, Iowa upset number 6, Michigan, on their senior day by a score of 62-44. So it really, I thought, was kind of a shocking game. What were your initial thoughts on it, Becca?
I felt like Michigan was out of sorts when it comes to offensively, but I also think Iowa just turned it up offensively. I think one piece that as a post player I want to highlight is Ava Heiden, who absolutely dominated the second half. The whole first half, she had a total of 4 points, and she finished the game with 24. So putting up 20 in the second half was absolutely a dominant performance. And one piece that I just want to mention here is her ability and versatility in the paint, a lot of post players are back to the basket players, and that's kind of what Iowa's been known for, but they've added on a second level to post player play, which is a face-up game. So Ava Heiden is one of the players. Her and Hannah Stolke are just so versatile in not only are they back to the basket, but then they also catch it a little bit outside the paint, turn face up, and then make reads off of it, whether it's a drive, an up and under, a reverse layup. They're facing up and really matching up with their player one-on-one to take the advantage. And I just think Ava Heiden dominated this game. She was pumping her fist. She was so excited. And that's the type of energy and overall just effort that any team has to have. And if she can continue to bring that for Iowa, they're only ranked 13 right now. They were in the top 10 earlier on in the season. I think this is a very telling game for Iowa to get the confidence they need, especially to upset number 6 Michigan.
Yeah, if Ava wasn't highlighted and circled and underlined on your scouting report before for teams, she certainly is now. Like, what a competitor. I just thought she really had a breakout game. She's been capable of it all season. She's had good games, but man, she really put the game on her shoulders, and it's actually fun to watch. She's a competitor. I love that. I think Iowa, they have a lot of girls that can show out in that way. I feel like they have that freedom. They share the ball pretty nicely, right? So if you're on that night, I think you can just go for it. Like we've seen Stolke do that in the past where she'll just take over games. So it's really exciting to see a couple of those players that are capable for it for Iowa. I thought it was kind of crazy, the score, right? 62-44. They held Michigan to 44 points. Michigan came into that game ranked 5th nationally in scoring, right? So that's huge to hold a team to 44 points. Iowa's defense was just smothering. And to your point, Michigan looked out of sorts, right? They just were taken out of their game. Shout out to the Hawkeye defense. If they play defense like that, they can beat anybody. I really believe it. Like, they were just shutting them down. Michigan shot just 30.5% from the field. They had 24 turnovers, and we're talking about a Michigan team that can take care of the ball. They've got Silas Swords. They've got Olsen. They've got really good players that are capable of handling it, and Iowa just made them look like they were middle school girls trying to bring the ball up the floor, So it was kind of crazy. I just think Iowa played really, really well. I do think that the 6th man for them is their home environment. Like, the Iowa Hawkeye fans, we talked about this a lot. They really are into their women's basketball. They're into their sports there. I just think that momentum is something that the Hawkeye players then get behind. You've got Jan Jensen, who's been there for decades now, right? She's just done such a great job, I think, taking over from Lisa Bluter. I just think this was a signature win for them. I think they're going to look back in the committee when they go to do seeding and look at Iowa's body of work. This was a monster win for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, anytime you can get Silas Swords to only score 7 points and she's played the whole game, I think you have a good chance. It's not that she didn't take her shots, right? She was 3 for 11 from the field and 1 for 6 from 3. But an interesting stat that I just looking into, right? You mentioned the turnovers. The free throws were pretty much, they were very low, right? It was like 4 for Iowa, 6 for Michigan. But the assists, we know Iowa likes to share the ball, and the offense that you mentioned just gives them the freedom to do so. And they have the IQ to hit the open player when it counts. Iowa had 17 assists and Michigan only had 9. So that just kind of tells you a lot about the style of play and maybe Michigan forcing it a bit, not really creating and getting the open spot. Again, that could happen, but if people are missing the shot and they shot a bit poorly this game, that'll definitely bring down that assist number. But all in all, amazing win for Iowa. Completely agree on the 6th man being their stadium. The sellouts, I think they're at 50 in a row now. So I think that's just absolutely amazing that the community rallies behind them. And I mean, they should. Iowa's a good team, period.
Yeah, I think they're, depending on what seed they get in the tournament, they're going to be a sleeper because they're going to roll into that Sweet 16 hopefully here. And no matter who they're playing, you got to take Iowa seriously because I think they're going to come out and they compete. When they're on, they're on. And if they're rolling and peaking at the right time come tournament time, this could be a Elite 8 team in my mind.
Yep. I completely agree with that. Someone, a team to definitely keep in your brackets, especially if given their seeding and kind of who they're playing. I don't doubt that they would be a go-to and a possibility of not only upsets, but consistently beating teams that they should as well.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So Our high is the Iowa Hawkeyes, and our low is the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan's going to have to turn it around here because they still got teams left on the Big Ten schedule. You roll into that Big Ten tournament. I think maybe a blip for them, but we'll see how they respond.
The remaining 2 games are against Ohio State and Maryland, both ranked teams that could easily pull off an upset, especially against a Michigan team that just saw one. That's a lot of confidence for Ohio State and Maryland right now.
Yeah, both of those are doozies, and Ohio State is coming in off of a loss too. We're going to talk about that. So they're going to be coming in this week ready for blood. So they're going to have to rebound. That's going to be an interesting game to watch for sure, as with the Maryland game.
Agree. Let's go to our second quarter, where we're just going to debrief on some additional ranking rockers. A lot of upsets here for the week. Going to roll through them, and then we'll kind of go back and debrief any. But Wednesday had 2 upsets. Number 20, Texas Tech beat number 15, Baylor. Pretty handsomely there, 87-56. Number 23, Minnesota also beat number 10, Ohio State, 74-61. Then we jump to Thursday, where an unranked Texas A&M beat number 21, Tennessee, 82-74. Saturday, an unranked Colorado beat number 20, Texas Tech, 75-68. And on Sunday, we had 2 unranked beat a ranked. First one being Clemson beating the number 9 Duke, 53-51. And the last one was unranked Virginia beating number 8 Louisville, 74-72. So 6 upsets this week. There honestly could have been a couple more that happened, but didn't, thankfully, within the last minute. And I say thankfully because I'm a Vandy girl. I do like what they're doing. Shea Ralph, I appreciate that. Iowa State was close with TCU, but TCU pulled it off because Olivia Miles went crazy. But just looking at these 6 upsets, any 1 or 2 specifically stand out to you, Sid?
We had mentioned Duke last episode because at that point they had won 16 in a row, I think it was, and then they had won 17 in a row and then turned around and lost to an unranked Clemson. I think that's a big upset there because Duke was rolling. They were hot for a while there in the ACC. I just think the big call out with the Duke game is they only put up 51 points. And I think that's the common theme with Duke. We've talked about it for 2 seasons now. When they lose games, it's their offense. It's not their defense. They only gave up 53 points. So it reminds me almost like a football game, right? Where you're playing 2 games in one. And within basketball, there's a lot of truth to that also. And if you're not figuring out how to take over games and get buckets, and especially against good scouts, you're going to lose. And I think Clemson put together that good scout. They went out, they executed, they played well. And to me, that was a big upset for Duke.
Yeah, I agree with you. The low scoring has been something we've mentioned, and then it kind of seemed like Duke took a turn, and they were a bit more confident, able to put points up and score. But I agree fully. I also think the unranked Virginia beating a number 8 Louisville, 74-72 is a big one to note. Louisville, we also highlighted as they had been rolling. I think they were undefeated in the ACC there for a minute, so they were just in a good spot overall. And unranked Virginia comes into the Yum Center and just pulls off an upset. They were confident. They were matter of fact. Virginia is a wild card for me. I think they've pulled off a couple upsets as well. They had a 3-game winning streak right now. They've upset teams like Notre Dame, Cal, Stanford, and they play North Carolina next, who's also ranked in the top 25. So it could be another potential upset for them to get kind of back within the top 25. I think it was just very telling, and to go into Louisville where they have a lot of firepower when it comes to the offensive side of house. I just think they really did a good job here.
That should put them in the tournament at least, right? So that's good for their program, I think. Shout out to the Cavaliers for getting it done against Louisville. That's a big one.
Now, Sid, I don't want to bring it up to harp on it, but I do want to know what you think when a ranked Tennessee lost to an unranked Texas A&M.
I think Texas A&M's coach is actually pretty good. They haven't had the best season. I think Tennessee is very wishy-washy on who shows up. So this past Sunday against Oklahoma, they looked a lot better. They looked decent against Texas, and they don't show up and play against a Texas A&M. I just think it speaks to the maturity of the program right now across the board. I don't think we're making great halftime adjustments. And I think that's a little bit on the coaches. I don't think we have players that are showing up and competing consistently. And you and I both know you got to show up and play for 40 minutes, especially right now in the SEC. The SEC is a really,
Hard.
really, really good conference. Like, it's, in my mind, the toughest this conference has been in a while.
1,000%.
Heading into the SEC tournament here, I'm like, there's a solid 4 teams to me that could win it. So it's a really, really tough conference. And I think the front portion of the conference, we played really well, but we played the bottom half of the conference. And now we're turning around and we're playing the top half of the conference. Although Texas A&M isn't in the top half, we're still scouting and having to prepare throughout the week for the top half. So I think it's tough right now. And Tennessee still has a couple tough games left. Like, they could lose the next 2. I just think it's not great, but I just think it speaks to the maturity of the program overall.
Yeah, before the South Carolina Ole Miss game on Sunday, Andrea Carter she picked Oklahoma, and it was just a matter-of-fact statement, like, Tennessee doesn't play defense well, and you never know what team's going to show up. So I think it's very telling when you have alumni kind of in the same boat as I am with Notre Dame, just seeing a side of a team that you're not really used to seeing and trying to stay up with them. And it's hard to get any sort of feel when you're not there every day. You just see the games, and it's you want more for the team and the program because it's where you came from and you know the expectation, and it's just not it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I was really excited about this season. I'm hoping we can turn it around a little bit because, Caldwell had a lot of her recruits coming in, and I thought the style got a lot of attention last year, and I was hoping that momentum would carry forward, but I just don't think it has. If anything, I think the style's flat this year. So big adjustments need to be made within the season, and I don't know if that's going to happen. We can't even make them during the game. So I don't have a lot of faith right now, unfortunately.
I mean, it's fair. I mean, there's 6 other upsets this week alone, and could have been way more. So it's definitely the tide in the season with women's basketball. And I think, as you mentioned, the SEC being the hardest conference probably it's ever been. 1,000% agree with that. The tournament's going to get pretty bonkers. So looking forward to tuning into that, as it's honestly within the next 2 weeks is when they'll start playing for conference. How crazy is that?
That is crazy. I'm excited. Then it's March. So that's like the best time of the year. We just got to get to March.
Yes. Completely agree.
All right, let's hit our third quarter. We're going to talk about the WNBA mock draft, which is really exciting. I'm excited for the draft this year because we've watched these players for 2 seasons now, I think, pretty extensively. Well, some of them, but the ones that are playing current college ball in the U.S., and so it's going to be fun to see where everyone ends up. But right now, if we run through the top 10 quickly, here's where the WNBA mock draft would land. So number 1, the Dallas Wings with the first pick, AZ Fudd. Number 2, the Minnesota Lynx with the second pick, Awa Pham. She's a player from Spain. Number 3, the Seattle Storm, Olivia Miles. Number 4, Washington Mystics, Lauren Betts. Number 5, Chicago Sky, Flau'jae Johnson. Number 6, Toronto Tempo, Cody McMahon. And that's exciting, the Toronto Tempo. I'm excited for that. Number 7, Portland Fire. Also excited for that team. Nell Angloma from France. Number 8, Golden State Valkyries, Ayana Martin. Also another international player from Spain. Number 9, Washington Mystics, Gianna Neepkins. And number 10, the Indiana Fever, Medina Okot. So a lot of great players, obviously, as we would expect, right? It's the top 10 for the draft and the WNBA coming up here. What are some of your initial thoughts here, Beck?
Yeah, so AZ Fudd, obviously, rightfully so. Number 1 pick, consistent shooter, go-to for UConn. She's averaging 17 points a game. Great team. Got it. Check. That checks all the boxes. I think what's going to be interesting is see how these players fit within the teams, but also there's a huge discussion around the WNBA in general. Is there going to be a lockout? Is there trades, free agency? So those teams could all look so different. So it's not really worth us digging into how would AZ play with Enrique and Paige, because who knows if they'll be there,
Right.
right? So talking about these players just as they are and as is, I think it's really hard for anybody in the States to have or see people from abroad in the top 10 or top 15. I know these are mock drafts, but I know I could go out on the internet and dig into these players, right? Like number 2, for instance, Awa Fam, like she's from Spain, 6'4", averaging 9 points and 4 boards, but and she's young, 19. A lot of that is probably based on her height. And that all makes sense, but I would love if ESPN or somebody in the WNBA, and this would probably never happen because the WNBA is focused on so many other things like a season. But if these girls are really going to be in a draft, have a segment on ESPN highlighting these players from abroad and for what reasons. Because if all of a sudden we're going to see them get drafted, I just think it's really hard for fans of the teams to relate or get really an understanding of where they're from. I mean, this girl's coming in and she's going to be a number 2 pick. I think that's pretty crazy. So I would just like more information is my point. So I'm going to go probably dig into it outside of this just so I can educate myself on these players, because I think it's only right. I just wish that was kind of fed to us a bit more. Olivia Miles having the 3rd pick. I think that's a great pick and a good spot for her for sure. I think the one that kind of shocks me is Cody McMahon. And I know you highlighted her. I love her game. I think she's so versatile. I think her move to Ole Miss made her so much better, so much more marketable. And that is just a tip in the cap to Coach Yo seeing the ultimate potential in somebody and adding to their game. I'm not knocking what Ohio State did and Kevin McGuff and his team and his structure and his segment of how his team, the style they play, but she was very much a post player. She would take girls off the drive because she has that ability and she's just so athletic. But I think with Coach Yo and at Ole Miss, her stock has just risen in the best way because now she's a point guard. Now she's handling it. She's a 1 through 5 in my eyes. And I just think the opportunities are endless for her. Her body is amazing. She's built for this. She's built for league play right now. So to see her at 6, I think is a good spot. And honestly, depending on how Ole Miss does in the tournament, I think it could even possibly go up a bit, maybe knocking down Flage Johnson or the girl from overseas. Just my initial thoughts on what I was taking a peek at.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cody McMahon has done a great job at Ole Miss, like really has put herself out there and has had a fantastic season so far. To your point, jumps up to potential number 6 draft pick, which is amazing. I think on the flip side, what's interesting, if you look down further on the list, you've got Tanaya Latson, who transferred from Florida State to South Carolina, who maybe this is kind of like a reverse effect where she went into South Carolina and hasn't really been the top scorer necessarily that we're used to seeing. And so she drops to 13 in this mock draft, right? Whereas before I would have been like, oh God, she's got to be a top 5 draft pick because she was a walking bucket at Florida State. She's also dealing with a leg injury right now. So they're saying she's not really 100% full go. So, that could be a factor so far this season. I say that, but she's still averaging 15.5 points per game for South Carolina. So like she's still getting buckets. She's just not the same though. I thought for sure she was going to come in and be more of a dominant scorer with South Carolina, but I mean, South Carolina is so well-rounded. They've got amazing players Raven Johnson, we can go through them all, like who also contribute and score. And she didn't have that at Florida State. So I'm hoping for Tanaya Latson. She's just learning a winning program, a winning philosophy through Dawn, who has a ton of experience in every segment of our game, including the WNBA. So, it might make her actually more prepared jumping into the WNBA. If I were a scout in the WNBA, I'd be thinking through some of those things because I do think Tanaya Latson's really good. And obviously it works. It's got to be the personnel, the right fit. Are you looking for a guard? Are you looking for a post? What, to your point, like who's going to be on the roster? And maybe we see her jump up a little bit if South Carolina goes deep in the tournament and she turns things up. But I think that's interesting to see her at 13 personally.
I completely agree. And I love that we kind of both had a player that transferred and stock either went up or could have potentially gone down. So I think that's a good comparison. And just, I mean, again, we don't know, no, but this is just that mock draft. But I think
Right.
where the league will be and what player based on free agency, and if we have a league and if it's not a lockout, all of that will be very telling. So I'll be excited to watch it with either way.
Same. Looking forward to it, actually. It'll be fun.
All right, so let's get to that fourth quarter, which I know we just highlighted Cody McMahon, but everybody's entitled to a rough week, right, Sid? So the number 17 Old Miss, they had a brutal week. And I'm not just meaning brutal in the sense of they lost every game. I mean, it was a gauntlet. And we had highlighted this. LSU had won the week before. I think it's just underlining even more why the SEC is so darn good. So Ole Miss had 3 games this week. Started off on a high. They handled business against number 21 Tennessee by a score of 94-81. Cody McMahon puts up a career high 39 points. Fair. Checks the box. That makes sense to me. Ole Miss to me is very telling. The team will go as Cody McMahon goes. And that's a lot of teams have that. I would compare that to Hannah Hidalgo at Notre Dame, right? There's a one standout player and the team will just kind of make or break based on her performance. It's a lot of pressure. It's not something maybe every player feels, but it is what it is. And I think the player, when you are that player, you understand your role and responsibility. Then they went into their second game of the week, which was the middle of the week, and they hung with LSU. They played them well. It was at LSU. It was a rocking stadium. But the worst part is this is where you started to see Ole Miss get tired. They did not make a field goal in the entire fourth quarter. They went 0 for 17 from the field, the only points they put up were free throws, and I think it was like 7. Tough, absolutely tough way to end that game, especially when Ole Miss seemed pretty confident and comfortable most of the game, and then to lose it by 8 points by a score of 78-70, and knowing you couldn't buy a bucket in the fourth, absolutely rough. Definitely a tough game. They rounded off a brutal week having to play arguably one of the best teams in the country, right? And it I think this is where things really caught up with them. They lost to South Carolina 48-85, and Cody McMahon did not score a basket. She had 2 free throws and finished with 2 points for the game, going 0 for 9 from the field. Absolutely monster week regardless. You're playing Tennessee, LSU, South Carolina. So your level of competition only goes up and their play went down, which I think that's tough. I don't doubt Coach Yo and the team almost expected it, especially when you see how the style and flow of the game went. And I don't doubt they're going to take it and learn from it and provide other avenues and other ways to score and get points. But I just think this is highlighting how important Cody McMahon is to Ole Miss and their level of success or failure. And this was just a tough week for them.
Yeah, for sure. Tough one for Ole Miss. I think to me, the one that sticks out the most is how much South Carolina just absolutely took care of business and spanked Ole Miss, right? Like it's a sign of a really good team to me. And I think at the beginning of the year, I don't know if South Carolina was capable of it. Like we didn't see the explosive scoring. Edwards was a little bit more quiet. She had an awesome game on Sunday. I think Dawn has her team ramping up and getting better throughout the year. So I'm excited to see what they do in the tournament. They beat Tennessee by just the same amount, right? They're taking some of these teams and just demoralizing them. And I think that's a call out to a really good team. I think South Carolina's going to turn around this week. They're going to play Kentucky. Like they still got to turn around and play and show up every night, but they're manhandling some of these teams. And I just think it's a really good sign of a good team.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point, and I couldn't agree more. Thinking back to our first episodes of this season, I agree with you. We were talking about how South Carolina really wasn't putting teams away, and it was a bit more competitive than probably anyone who knows basketball would have liked and expected from a South Carolina team. So I completely agree. But for sure, they're rolling right now, and they're gaining confidence. When you have Akat, the 6'5" post player, stepping out and shooting threes confidently, not just like, oh, she throws it up, it could go in. It's like her shot. It's like they looked for her, they rotated the ball around, she was open at the top of the key, pulled it, swoosh. Like, good looking 3-point shot for your 5. I think they're rolling, they're developing their team, and they're continuing to get better and play with one another. And I think they're going to be dangerous for the tournament. As we've mentioned all year, it's just even better.
Yeah, and to shut down Cody McMahon, they're buying into the scouts defensively. Like, ooh. But let's go back to that point of like the SEC tournament. Doesn't mean South Carolina is going to win this thing, because
Agree.
there's like I think 4 solid teams that could win it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody else will jump in there.
Roll them
All
off.
right. Okay, it could be South Carolina.
Yep.
Could be LSU.
Yep. Ooh,
could be Vandy.
Okay. Oh,
they're ranked 5th in the country. I mean,
yep. Put Texas up in there.
And then Texas. Those 4, I'm like, I wish I could say Oklahoma, but they just haven't really, to me, gotten better throughout the season so far. So, but you never know. I mean, you got to play consecutive games, multiple days in a row. So you never know. Like, I'm not counting Oklahoma out by any means, but I don't know. I think South Carolina on paper and the way they're playing right now wins that thing, but who knows?
To be determined. I agree with you fully. And I agree with those. I'm gonna pick the 3, and I'm gonna move LSU out. I just think anything can happen, but Texas, I like the fact that earlier in the year they were tested in that first initial tournament around Thanksgiving break, where they had to play back to back against dominant teams, where they upset, I think it was Oklahoma and South Carolina. So they are, I feel like they're seasoned and they're ready for it. It's just kind of they're right now in like a lull of that end of the SEC tournament or SEC teams. So it'll kind of give them another opportunity to rise to the level of competition.
Yeah, we'll see. It should be interesting for sure. All right, we're going to jump into a little bit of an overtime here. We're just going to walk through the upcoming matchups for this week. So on Wednesday, February 25th, number 12, and I say number 12, but the rankings are going to change a little bit here. We're recording it prior to the rankings getting announced this week. But Wednesday, February 25th, number 12, TCU will take on Cincinnati. Also on Wednesday, number 6, Michigan will play number 10, Ohio State. Again, those rankings will probably shift a little bit. Thursday, the 26th, number 21, Tennessee will play number 7, LSU. Number 5, Vandy will play number 25, Alabama. Number 4, Texas will play number 25, Georgia. So Thursday, a good SEC night there. On Saturday, a really good Big Ten matchup. We had mentioned it already. On Saturday, February 28th, number 14, Maryland will play number 6, Michigan. And then on Sunday, March 1st, there it is. We're going to be in March come Sunday. Number 4, Texas will play number 25, Alabama. Number 9, Duke will play number 22, UNC. That's going to be a good grunge rematch there. They just played each other a couple weeks ago, so not a week ago, pretty soon. So they're playing each other within 2 weeks, I think, again. Number 10, Ohio State versus number 18, Michigan State. And then number 3, South Carolina versus number 16, Kentucky. I think that one's going to be potentially a battle. Kentucky's playing decent. Just lost to Vandy, but it was a really good game. Number 5, Vandy will play number 21, Tennessee. Some in-state rivalry, out for blood on that one. Number 15, Baylor will play number 12, TCU. And then number 2, UCLA will play USC. So a lot of good rivalry games coming up on Sunday as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Wednesday, the Michigan versus Ohio State game, both of them will definitely fall in the rankings, but I think that's going to be a big game for Big Ten tournament conference seeding, just an overall kind of get your pride back, both teams coming off losses and just want to get a bounce back for sure.
All right. Well, that should wrap us for today's episode. Really appreciate everyone tuning in. Hit us up. We do want to get a huddle in at some point. We've been saying that. And then there's been so much good juiciness this season. We just haven't gotten to it. We've just been doing more of the games. But hit us up on our socials with any good questions for a huddle episode. And really appreciate everyone. I'll turn it over to you, Beck.
Yep. Thanks for jumping in and tuning in. Hope we're downloading and As Sid said, we got to get a huddle. We have some questions popping in, but once we get a couple more, we'll definitely get one together. And I think that'll be an exciting episode. Those are always really fun. So thanks for tuning in, folks. And thanks, Sid. I hope you have a good week upcoming. We watch these games and we hope there's more juice and more wins and more losses to talk about.
Let's hope so. One can only hope, right? I'll talk to you soon, Beck.
All right. See you, Sid. That's the 28.5 final buzzer for today's episode. Don't forget to hit follow and download on your preferred podcast platform to catch every play-by-play. New episodes drop each week throughout the season.
If you've enjoyed our courtside chat, drop us a review or follow us on our social media accounts where you can send us questions that may be selected for our Team Huddle Q&A episodes. And remember, from females who have played the game, the size of the ball matters.